About a year ago, we started a new series. Now, we've only had one sermon in this series, so I was wondering if you could call one sermon a series, but today is the second one. And it's the series, an ongoing series called Seeing God Through the Eyes of a... ... You fill in the blank. Does anybody remember the first one 9 months ago?
Architect.
Frank.
Architect.
Yes, architect. Seeing God through the eyes of an architect. And today we're going to be treated to the second in this series, Seeing God Through the Eyes of a Photographer. And if you want to put up his title slide, Seeing God Through the Eyes of a Photographer. And the tagline is, maybe God doesn't want you to grow up. We'll hear about that in just a little bit. But I wanted to invite you, if you have ever had an inkling to give a sermon or share your story, and in this case, from your unique perspective, how do you see God? Because the way Paula sees God is different than the way I see God. Oh, there are a lot of commonalities. But we all have either special talents or gifts or careers or seasons of life where we have this unique look into what God is like. So today we're going to hear from Matthew Arquero, and just a little bit about Matthew. He is a student at San Diego State University, still a freshman, right? Sophomore, sorry. Hey, he looks young. But so do I. I could pass for a freshman, right? Sophomore at SDSU. He is a part of our denomination from our sister church up in the Bay Area in San Jose, if I'm not mistaken. And he came down here to school, and we've known him and his family for a number of years. And now he's a part of our family down here at Cornerstone. And just so you know, we do have a couple of individuals on deck for our ongoing series. Lucy's on deck for a sermon coming up in the next few months. And if we can twist David Leon's arm, seeing God through the eyes of a cosmologist, ooh, that's going to be wild stuff. That's going to be cool. So if you're interested, just let me know. And what I do is I work with you over a number of weeks, or in Seth's case, a number of months. And we had a lot to hash out. A number of weeks, a number of months to prepare you to give a sermon. And it doesn't have to be as long-winded as I give them, 45 minutes or so. It can be a 15 or a 20-minute sermon, and we'll work with you. But today I am excited because we've been with Matthew in the last few weeks, and we can't wait for him to share his story, and we can't wait for you to hear it. So, Matthew, come on up. Let's hear it from Matthew.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
How are y'all?
Wonderful.
That's good. I only got 4 hours of sleep. I was pretty nervous last night. But right now, I'm not that nervous. Usually, like, when I give a speech in class or a presentation, I'm usually really nervous. But I feel like Cornerstone's a really safe place for me. So I'm just grateful for all of you. I always heard preachers talk about how good the worship was, so I guess we give a round of applause for the worship. And Mark introduced me a little bit, and I'm just going to introduce myself a little bit more. So yes, I moved from San Jose to San Diego. I go to school here at San Diego State, and I'm studying marketing. And I've been part of this church for like a year and a half, so it's my second semester of my second year in college. Like Mark said, I've been part of GCI ever since I was born. My pastor is Pastor Mel Dahlgren. Some of you might know him. And I've been SCP SoCal ever since I was really young. That's how I know Mark and Ann. I've been on and off, but now I've been going to SB Tahoe, which is a lot closer to me, or was to me, back home. And now I volunteer as a counselor and assistant counselor at SB SoCal. So if it wasn't for GCI and Pastor Mel and SCP, I probably wouldn't, be here, staying here right now. So, also my roommate Kobe is here. Say hi, Kobe. So if you want to learn my deepest, darkest secrets, just talk to them afterwards. And wow, this my first sermon. It's working as your first sermon is kind of tough. You don't want it to be perfect, right? You want to make a good impression. You want to make sure I'm qualified to speak next time. We'll see if that happens. Let's see. Yeah, last night I just found myself overthinking my transitions and how I'm going to connect certain ideas and how to make this sermon really memorable. And I was really stressing about it. I only got 4 hours of sleep, like I said. But I remember something that Mark told me after our doctrine discussion. And he said, "You already have the story. All you have to do is tell it." So that's what I'm going to try to do today. Not worry about all these transitions and if I'm doing good, if I'm getting well received. So yeah, it took off a lot of pressure off me. So like Mark said, we're in the middle of a series, seeing God through the eyes of blank, ... The first one was Seth. I wasn't here for that sermon, but I'm sure it was good, right? Was it good?
Yeah, it was.
And so today's sermon is about seeing God through the eyes of a photographer. So I consider myself to be a photographer, right? And it's been hard for me to define what photography is. There's not one definition that there is for photography, right? Photography is something new or something different for every photographer that's out there. For me, photography is telling other people's stories. And so this sermon is actually not about me. It's about someone I know from camp. So yes, there will be photos in this sermon on the slideshow, but they aren't my photos. I'll explain that in a bit. Before I get to the sermon, I want to thank Mark and Ann for helping me prepare for the sermon and for believing in me and for seeing the value in my voice and in this story, and for giving all of us a platform and for everything that they do for us in this church. And I want to thank you, Cornerstone, for making this place a place I want to be on Saturdays, a place where I feel comfortable and I feel safe. I'm going to be honest, I haven't practiced this sermon, so I might go overtime, and if I go overtime, I'm sure you're going to love me anyway. Let's open up in prayer. Dear God, thank you for being you. Thank you for the stories that we tell, and the stories that we hear and that we're able to learn from them. I pray this message is something that you all want all of us to hear. And it's not something new, that it's something that we be reminded of every day. And I pray that you just be with us this time, and that the words that I speak to your love for us. So I just pray that the sermon goes well, and that we all get home safe after today. In Jesus' name, amen. So, the title of my sermon, next slide, is Maybe God Doesn't Want You to Grow Up. That's confusing, right? I think a lot of us think that makes no sense. As a kid, we want to be adults, and as adults, God wants to be kids. That's where do you get that from? Or it doesn't make any sense. Aging is natural, right? But I think we can look at Matthew 18, verse 1 to 4 to understand what I really mean when I say that God doesn't want you to grow up. So let's read that. Can you all read that? At the time, the disciples came to Jesus and asked, "Who is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven?" Then he called a little child over to sit among the disciples and said, "I assure you that if you don't turn your lives around and become like the little child, you will definitely not enter the kingdom of heaven. Those who humble themselves like this little child will be the greatest in the kingdom of heaven." So what does Jesus mean when he talks about a little child? That's right. So do all of you remember how you were when you were a child? Maybe not. Maybe you have kids or you have grandkids. And what are they like? What are they like, Frank?
You can't tell what they're going to do, but it's always going to be a challenge. I have grandkids. I have great grandkids. growing up in the 50s, time of peace. And since it's a wonderful time of God, Brent will be here when
That's good. When I first read this, I didn't think of a little child as what Frank described. I thought of a kid as like someone who complains, right? Someone who doesn't share. Someone who is impatient. So maybe Jesus is talking about a child like what Frank described. But for me, I think Jesus isn't talking about actual children, right? Because not all children are like what Frank described, right? I think a lot of us, at least for me, I was always crying. I was always fighting with my sister. We don't fight anymore. We're all kids once. And so maybe, if you look at the context, children in Jewish society were looked down upon, right? They weren't up here, they were down here. And so children in Jewish society and culture weren't concerned with themselves. And they cared more about others, I feel like. And so maybe being like a little child means to humble yourself, like we read in verse 4. To humble yourself like this little child. I also want to highlight another word in the first verse, the kingdom of heaven. Right? And I think a lot of us are conditioned to think that the kingdom of heaven is a place that we go after this one, right? But I think when Jesus talks about the kingdom of heaven in Matthew, in Luke he calls it the kingdom of God. I think it's about transforming this place into the world that God always wanted it to be. So one translation that I like to use is the reign of love. Because it implies that it's something that's present and something that's here and now, and it's not a place that we try to go, right? It's more of an experience that we enter into and that we encounter. So Jesus gives us 2 steps in order to experience this reign of love. If you look at verse 3, he says to turn and become like a little child. Right? So to turn is an action that we do. It's an act of repentance, right? Repentance is an action. That's why I talked to one of my friends in crew about that repentance is an action. It's not just you saying something. It's you making a shift away from being selfish and you acknowledging that you're not God. It's a shift from yourself to caring for others. And as Christians, we don't just believe things, right? We do things. We love others, we care for others, we serve others. Because that's what turning is. Turning is an action. It's a different mindset that we have. And so the second step that Jesus called us to do is to become. To become is something that happens when we turn. It's a transformation of what God does through us. So this process of becoming like children is something that we and God do together. It's not something that we do. It's not Jesus just telling us to just turn and become like a little child. It's something that we partner with God to do, to experience His reign of love, right? And so when Jesus says that you will not enter the kingdom of heaven, He's not saying that if you're not like a little kid, you're not going to enter heaven. That we normally associate that word with, but He's saying that we won't be able to experience His reign of love right now unless we turn and become like little children. And so if I were to summarize, that's a lot of stuff, right, to say. If I were to summarize all that in one sentence, I'd say that Jesus wants us to become the most loving people that we can be so that we can experience heaven right now. So now I want to share this journal I wrote about a little kid who teaches us how to be a little kid. So next slide. This is the story of how 9-year-old Jeremiah cracked the meaning of life. So I wrote this journal about a week, maybe 2 weeks after camp. It took me a while to process this because he had all these pictures on my camera, and I was looking through these pictures, like people need to learn about this kid, right? And I wrote about it because I wanted people to see how great this kid was and what he had to teach me about myself and what it means when Matthew says that, or when Jesus tells us that we have to turn and become like little children. So next slide. This is Jeremiah. He was in my dorm. Go 6B. 6B. So yeah, this is Jeremiah. He was one of the little kids. One of the youngest and smallest kids in our dorm. Everyone loved Jeremiah. He always had his shirt tucked in. He had his, like, when he wore a shirt, he would go all the way down to his knees. It was funny. And he was always smiling, always sang in the shower. He never finished his breakfast. He's always hula hooping. He's probably one of the best ones at camp, honestly. And he was always the first one to wake up and never finish his breakfast. We go to the next slide. So I brought this camera to camp. I didn't really have any intention of using it. I just wanted to help out with photography because Lucy, she was kind of handicapped. She couldn't walk around a lot, so I was like, all right, I'll help out when I have free time. But then I brought this to camp, and then Jeremiah asked if he can use it. And I said, sure, why not, right? So I showed him how to use it, and I didn't really tell him how to shoot. I didn't tell him, you have to, take the picture a certain way. I want you to go take a picture of that. I showed him how to take the picture, right? How to keep it safe. How to delete pictures, how to view pictures. But I didn't tell him what to shoot, because I didn't want him to be like a mini me. I wanted him to be Jeremiah. I wanted to be to him who God made him to be. So we go to the next slide. There's a quote that I love by Thomas Merton. He says that the beginning of love is to let those we love be perfectly themselves and not to twist them to fit our own image. Otherwise, we love only the reflection of ourselves we find in them. And so this is what actually drives my photography. Like, I usually don't tell people to stand over there or like to do a certain pose, right? I'll take pictures of people where they're at. For me, photography is seeing God in people and seeing people, or seeing God in moments and being able to capture that and make that moment last a little longer. So I let Jeremiah take pictures of whatever and however he wanted, right? He took 800 photos in total. Yeah, he didn't want to delete any of the pictures either. He just loved every picture he took, and that really inspired me. But some of the pictures that he took were of trees and flowers and rocks and cats. Right, a lot of cats we saw on our way to Shiloh. But what I want to show you are the pictures that he took of campers and staff. You go to the next slide. If you look at these pictures, are these people sad? Are they grumpy? Are they scared of Jeremiah? I don't think so. I think a peace sign is a good indication that you're a safe person to be around. Right, so you see top corner, we have someone kneeling down for Jeremiah. We have Matt right in Jeremiah's face. You see Anna over there giving a smile. Eli, and a bunch of other campers just smiling for Jeremiah. We go to the next slide. More pictures. We have Danielle, more peace signs, right? We have Noah and John L. They're not grumpy, right? Top right corner. They're just being themselves. They're mugging it for Jeremiah. In the bottom left corner, we have Kenny, Chris, right? Is that Chris? Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a really good photo. We took a lot of pictures of Shiloh in the dining hall. Again, more peace signs. You have John L. Right there giving him a little, lion action, a little roar. I want to talk about John L. and Jeremiah a little bit. They had a really good relationship. They were one of the smallest kids in our dorm, really short. And all the youngest two, they were both 9 years old. They wrestled with each other. They fought with each other a little bit sometimes. We had to resolve that. Well, they had a really special friendship. They had to take turns using the camera, right? And that was one of the most inspiring things, how Jeremiah was able to connect with everyone and everything around him. Even kids who might be in competition with him, in a sense. So we go to the next slide. We got more pictures. I like this picture in the top left corner because that's something that I like to do. I like to capture these kind of moments where people are laughing, moments of happiness and joy. If you look to the top right, we got Holly. I've never seen her do that pose for me, right? But Jeremiah is such a like inviting person that people can be themselves around. Like they feel comfortable being around Jeremiah and having a camera in their face by a little 9-year-old. And I like this the bottom right where like him and Holly are having a little shootout in Shiloh. Go to the next slide. You got Keith, you got more campers, you got Koa and Mia. You got Koa doing a little thing. And we have a girl modeling for Jeremiah, even though Jeremiah didn't say to do that. You know, I saw that happen. That was pretty cool. And, like that happened like all the time, like during camp. Like people would just pose for Jeremiah, right? Next slide. We have Tito with the shades. We have Abby and Cassandra. They did the piece in a lot too. The bottom left are my campers, EJ and Kaysen. And so Jeremiah took pictures everywhere. He took pictures in the dining hall at Shiloh during chapel. I had to honestly like take it away from him sometimes because he took too many pictures. Yeah, like in a way, you know what Jeremiah is through these photos, right? Like you know what he's like. I mean, well, Tito's done this pose for me, but
He does it for everybody.
yeah. But like I was looking through all 800 of these photos, and like no one was running away from Jeremiah. No one had their hand in their face, like they felt like they were ashamed or they felt like they couldn't show themselves around Jeremiah. So what I wanted to show you with these pictures is that Jeremiah is a safe person to be around. And so in the journal that I wrote a sentence that really I think will speak to a lot of people. And I said, if your neighbor is always tense and insecure, what does that say about you? Right? You don't want to be people who people can't open up to, people who aren't safe to be around. You want to be people who reveal God in all people. If we go to the next slide. Oh yeah. More. I think that's Lola. Is that Lola?
Yeah.
That's Lola. Yeah, Jeremiah took a lot of blurry pictures too. A lot of poorly lit photos. But like whenever I asked Jeremiah if he wanted to delete them, he said no. I think that spoke to me in a profound way because for me as a photographer, at least like photography that I do, like I'm always conscious about what I take pictures of and how these photos look if they're in focus. I think that's like how I define good photography. But for Jeremiah, it was just about capturing this moment. And so normally, if I would take this picture, I would say, oh, it's blurry. It's not worth being on Facebook. But Jeremiah saw happiness, and he didn't care if it wasn't in focus. So there were 100 of these. He took pictures of, like I said, trees, rocks, things that I don't associate to be interesting usually. But he saw God everywhere, when I only saw God in people. So that's something that inspired me about Jeremiah. Go to the next slide. So there's a story behind this photo. You might not guess it right away. So I want you to imagine this camera being in my backpack, zipped up, right? Under my bed. Also, I know this photo was taken one of the first few days of camp because halfway through the week, Jeremiah actually broke his glasses playing tag. So we're like, I think in the morning we played tag. Our dorm was like on the slope, so we played tag and it was really slippery. So one of the first days, Jeremiah tripped and like got a scrape on his nose and broke his glasses. So he couldn't see for like the rest of camp. My other counselor, Max, also fell. He had a big scrape on his leg. And so after that, we're like, no more tag, no more tag in the morning. And so this photo was supposed to be me getting up in the morning. I want you to imagine, right? There's this scene. I'm sleeping. I'm right here. The camera is here. Under my bed. I just put it over there. The And Jeremiah is always the first one to wake up, right? So him and a bunch of kids are like, hey, let's take a picture of Matt. So he goes to my backpack, and he gets the camera. And so to turn on this camera, you have to click the switch, right? But what Jeremiah did, he went all the way to the end. That's the timer, right? So he focused the camera, and then he tried to get me try to get me in bed, and then he clicked, and the timer went off. Then I woke up, and I thought it was like a bomb or something. But then I looked up, and it was Jeremiah and a bunch of kids behind him, like focused this camera on me, and like, first of all, I don't like any pictures of me. Like, ask Kobe. Like Kobe, like yeah, we know, like me and pictures don't go together. Me, I'm behind the camera, I'm not in front of the camera. So Jeremiah took this camera, pointed at me, and I heard the timer go off. And it was like, you guys watch like Equalizer too? There's a scene where like Denzel Washington is like having a gun pointing at his face. And, like he just disarms the guy and points it right at him. That's basically what I did. Like I got up, like it was like instinct. I just like got the camera. And I had 2 seconds to like focus it because I didn't want to waste the film, right? Because film's kind of expensive. And so all the kids in the background just ran out of the frame, and then Jeremiah just stands there with his mouth wide open. And I focus in and I get this picture. It's kind of blurry, but you know, there's a story behind every picture, right? And if you go to the next slide, here's me. And you're thinking, Matthew doesn't like pictures of himself. So how did this happen? Well, we were in the game room. Okay, so first off, I got kind of mad at Jeremiah when he first took my camera. And I was like, all right, buddy, next time you got to listen. You got to ask me before you can use it. And he said, all right, Matt. He said, when can I use it next time? I said, later. And so the week goes by, and he'll ask me, he's like, can I use it now? I'm like, no, we can use it later. And so we're in the game room on one of these days, and he was playing ping pong, I think, and he got bored, and so he was sitting down. And I was playing foosball with one of my campers, EJ, and Jeremiah takes the camera out of my backpack, and he starts firing away, right? Like I think 5 photos in total. So what I learned in this moment, well, let me back up a little bit. So once I see that flash go off, I start running towards him, like I did in the morning, try to take it away from him. And yeah, he was upset, right? He was like, "Nah, you told me later." I was like, "Yeah, I told you to ask." It was kind of thing back and forth. So I kind of got mad at him. And I was throughout that day, I remember thinking like, oh, what's this so much film? Like I spent so much money on this film. And, like I wasted 5 shots out of 36 shots. But then when I got this developed and scanned and had it sent to me, it took looking at myself in a photograph to learn that I'm not like a child, right? I'm not present enough. I'm not too concerned about photography and good photos. I'm not concerned about Jeremiah's joy or taking photos to capture a moment, whether they're blurry or not. So this is where I learned humility. And during this week, Jeremiah showed me how to be like a child. When I look at this photograph, I think about how I wasn't present in the moment, and how I didn't love every photo that I took, and that maybe in this moment, when I took that camera out of his hands, that I wasn't maybe a safe person for him to be around. But when I look at this photo, I'm reminded of Jeremiah. This is his photo. He took of me. And so something that I'm trying to learn is how to be present in every moment. How to love every photo that I take, and how to share that camera with other people. And so being like a child, like what Jesus says, is not something that I learned. I mean, it's something I learned, but it's not something that I learned, right? We're still learning things as we go along life. So this idea of turning and becoming like a child is something that I'm still learning every day. Turning is not a one-time thing. It happens in every interaction that we have with everyone around us. It's happened yesterday. So yesterday I woke up really late because I don't have class on Friday. I sleep in. My roommate, Kobe, walks in. He's feeling good, feeling great. He got paid. He was like, I want to buy a video game. Want to go out? Like, the first thing I thought of, so like last week we had the thing with Joe Presapio, right? We had the four corners. And I was over there, and those are the introverts, the people who are task-oriented. The first thing I thought of was like, oh, I got to work on the sermon, I got to perfect it. I got other things to do. I got to go to the gym, got to cook, whatever. Like in that moment, I thought about Jeremiah. And I thought that maybe the way that I can be more childlike and to turn and become is to share my time. And so like yesterday was worth it. Like, I was trying to get an oil change, but then they had a long line. We got his game. We went to La Jolla to take pictures, and that was just a fun time to like bond with Kobe, even though we had like an hour drive back because it was like 4 p.m. But yeah, sharing my time is one way that I'm able to be like a child. And for you, it might look different, right? Maybe you don't want to share it. Maybe I want you to think about something that you hold close to your heart that you can share. During that week, it was about sharing a passion, photography. Next slide. So as we wrap up, I want to focus on this verse, the last verse that I read earlier. Those who humble themselves like this little child will be the greatest in the kingdom of God, or kingdom of heaven. And so in order to be like little children, we have to humble ourselves. I think we often hear Jesus talk about us having to be the least in order to be the greatest. And if I were to make my own translation, the Matthew Arquero translation of this verse, I'd say that those who are like Jeremiah will experience the reign of love in the deepest way possible. And so maybe to be like a child is to be like Jeremiah. Maybe we don't become like a child every time we love ourselves more than others. Maybe to love is to let others be themselves. Maybe heaven is already all around us, and it's just waiting to be experienced. Maybe God doesn't want us to grow up. But God wants us to be like children. I want to go back to the photos. Can you go back, Lucy? Back more. To the photos of the campers. So what kind of people do we want to be? Like, I think we want to be people who people can be themselves around. People who are comfortable to be around, who we invite others to be part of our story. Right? We want Tito to be able to do this photo in front of us. Yeah, I think about these pictures a lot. Like, they're all saved in my phone. Like, just a reminder every time that maybe I don't want to share my time with others, that I want to be by myself. I think that's okay. We can be by ourselves. But like yesterday, sharing my time is something that has enabled me to be more like a child, to share time and experiences with others. And I'm getting close to the end here. Yeah. suppose I want to wrap up with a paragraph that I wrote in the journal. And I wrote this. Well, the first thing I wrote before this was like, even if you didn't get anything from this journal, I want you to read this, and this is exactly what I want you to hear. So this is what I said. Be selfless and share your passions with other people. Have a heart like Jeremiah that finds joy in all things. Provide a safe space that invites people to be themselves. And when it becomes instinct to embody these things, maybe we'll be rewarded by knowing more of Jeremiah is. Maybe we'll be inspired to love more. Maybe we'll feel what God is like, who is love, and holy love. Let's pray. Dear God, thank you for showing us how to experience this reign of love, this kingdom of heaven. Thank you that we have people in our lives who are safe to be around, whether they're old or super young. And I pray that we be these people for other people, that we can be safe people, and we can be people who are themselves around us. So God, thank you for viewing us the same way, as people who we can come to without having to hide ourselves or to cover ourselves and hide from you. So God, be with us as we go into this week where we learn to turn and to be like little children. Thank you for all you do for us. Thank you for being a reigning God and for the rain that you provided us today. And I pray for those who may not be here today, who may not have heard this message that you want us to hear, that you find ways to speak to them in their everyday lives, that they are loved and you invite us to be just like that. I pray for those who are suffering today, who are in pain, who maybe don't have these people who are safe. That God, you show yourself to these people, to us, like us today. And I just pray that you heal our wounds, heal us of things that might torment us, that bring us pain. Thank you, God, for loving us. And for showing us that the reign of love is something that's here and now, waiting for us to discover. In Jesus' name, amen.